Hi, I'm Ernabel Demillo. Welcome to Asian American Life. We're here at the Brooklyn Botanic Garden, where hanami, which means cherry blossoms, are in full bloom this season. This month, you could view over 220 flowering trees and 40 different species of cherry blossoms. And in the Japanese Hill and Pond Garden, visitors from all over the world stop by to enjoy the variety of flowers, ranging from white fragrant blossoms to the billowing pink prunus trees. Today, in honor of Asian American Pacific Heritage Month, we profile Asian American leaders who have changed America. I recently spoke with Assemblyman Ron Kim, the first Korean American to be elected to New York State Legislature.
This is my favorite part, when I come down from Albany, I like to be here and try to help as many as possible.
Assemblyman Ron Kim is making history, but this history-making feat may surprise you. His office, located off Main Street in Flushing, Queens, is seeing a record number of visitors from constituents. Ron, this is a typical day here in your office?
Yeah, this is a typical day. We get about anywhere between 50 to 150 constituents every single day. On average, last year we had 11,000 constituents. Up to now, we have almost 14,000 total constituents that we served.
He's also making another kind of history. Kim's the first Korean American to be elected to New York State office. He is part of a record number of Asian Americans who ran and were elected into public office nationwide in 2012, along with winning a number of local offices across the country from California, Hawaii, Illinois, and New York. Asian Americans, according to the Asian Pacific American Institute for Congressional Studies, reports that a record number of Asian Americans ran for Congress. There were a total of 36 candidates of Asian descent, more than double the number from a record set just 2 years prior in 2010. 6 candidates won their races, resulting in the largest caucus of Asian Americans in a single congressional session. APAIC called it an historic moment. Assemblyman Kim's predecessor is among this group. Grace Meng became the first Asian American to represent New York in Congress. These numbers aren't surprising, considering Asian Americans are the fastest growing minority group in the country. According to the U.S. Census, the population grew almost 50% between 2000 and 2010. But even with the records broken in 2012, there is still a wide gap between Asian American elected officials and the community's population. In New York City, for example, Asians make up 13% of the population, but there are just 2 council members of Asian descent. District 1's Margaret Chen and District 20's Peter Koo. Sayu Bojwani, who served as New York City's first Commissioner of Immigrant Affairs, is the founder and director of the New American Leaders Project, a nonprofit whose mission is to train the next generation of leaders.
We talk about the immigrant story and the values underlying that story, and really emphasize how those values can be part of public service as much more so than politics. We talk about this base of people that people can mobilize.
They have trained more than 300 people, and so far, 15% have run for political office. She believes this diverse pool of candidates will inspire others to run for political office.
One big thing is that having someone like me running for office tends to motivate people who feel connected to me. Now that could be many things. It could be women, it could be nonprofit leaders, but it means a lot to South Asians or to Asian Americans to see one of themselves in office. And we saw that with Grace Meng's election. She was supported across the board by other Asian American groups, not just Chinese Americans. So I think it boosts participation in politics by our communities. It creates a sense of trust in someone who looks like you.
Many Asian American politicians have acknowledged the status bestowed on many of them. Along with representing their districts, they carry the responsibility of being a source of empowerment for other Asian Americans, especially young Asians. Ron Kim, for instance, interned for John Liu, the first Asian American to hold elected office in New York. Kim worked for Liu right out of college.
I came back to the community that I grew up in Flushing, and at that time, Councilman John Liu, who was the first Asian American to be elected to office to any seat in New York was serving in his first term, and I was part of his first cohort of interns. And he really inspired me that Asian Americans can be public officials, can enter politics and make change locally. But above all, when I came back from college, I saw my neighborhood flushing with a different perspective, and I wanted to have more ownership of the direction of my own community.
Kim's story is similar to many in the immigrant community. His family moved to the United States for a better life. Kim, along with his mom and dad, immigrated to New York from South Korea in 1989. His father, an electrical engineer back in Korea, believed there were more opportunities for his family in the United States. They settled in Flushing, and his father opened a small grocery store in the Upper East Side. In the meantime, he encouraged his only child to pursue his passions. In high school, at Riverdale Country Day School, it was sports. Kim was captain of his football, track, and wrestling teams.
My dad was very unique, being an Asian American. He actually cared more about me scoring touchdowns on the football field and bringing home like A+ on a report. So he encouraged me to do whatever I want to do that made me happy from a very young age. But only advice was that if you're going to do it, and do it with full steam, be the first one to show up, last one to leave. He encouraged me to work hard, but really work hard at finding what I was passionate about from a very young age.
Today that passion is politics, but Kim doesn't like that term. He calls it public service. He earned his stripes working for then Assemblyman Mark Weprin and City Council Speaker Christine Quinn. He also worked in both Governor Spitzer's and Governor Patterson's offices.
I know that you're serving your first term, but I have to ask, do you have aspirations for higher office?
I'm very focused on serving my community. I know it's a very political answer, but it's my first term. It seems like it was just yesterday I just got into office, and it's already almost a year and a half serving my second session. I love being up in Albany, legislating and introducing and moving legislation. I love the camaraderie that I have with my colleagues in the Assembly, and I just want to be up there and grow from that position and bring back more resources that we rightfully deserve in this district.
Asian Americans still face certain barriers in a number of sectors, and that has coined a phrase, the bamboo ceiling, and it exists in the legal profession at large firms. I'm Paul Lin. I met with Helen Wan, a lawyer whose debut novel has struck a nerve with Asian American attorneys on the partner track. Helen herself, until just recently, had been Associate General Counsel at Time Inc., a division of Time Warner, but she recently left that job on the success of the partner track. She recalls her first job out of law school at a firm very much like Parsons Valentine, the one she writes about in the book. At the time, she wondered why no one else had written something like the partner track.
I actually went looking and wanted to find a book about the experience of being a woman of color in corporate America. I couldn't find one, and so I decided to write one myself.
These days, she and her literary agent, HSG Agency, have plenty to talk about. Her first novel has been very well received. Within months of the first print run, her book, the story of a young Chinese-American woman competing for partnership at a prestigious law firm, has already had its second printing and is coming soon in paperback.
Since the book's publication, I have been fortunate enough to have been invited around the country to speak at, yes, a lot of lawyer audiences, but also increasingly non-lawyer audiences, just to general, readers.
So why does the book have such broad appeal? People have embraced a protagonist, Ingrid Young, who navigates corporate politics while trying to stay true to herself and her values. It's not easy. At one point in the book, a partner gives Ingrid an offer she can't refuse, tapping her to promote a diversity initiative.
I didn't flatter myself by thinking that because I was possessed of such wit and charm, such keen legal acumen, my absence was unthinkable. No, I knew the rule. When you find an attractive, articulate minority woman in your midst, who's neither too strident nor too soft-spoken, who speaks English without accent or attitude, who makes friends easily and photographs well, you want her.
Helen highlights a common issue for people of Asian descent who work toward a promotion, getting recognition, less for partner-worthy qualities at a law firm and more for race and gender and support roles when it's convenient. I spoke with leaders at Albany, the Asian American Bar Association of New York, about all this. They say when people make certain assumptions about you, however well-meaning, it can be a subtle form of prejudice of which they may not be aware.
How many times do you get asked, okay, so where are you from? My answer is Nebraska, Omaha, Nebraska. No, but where are you really from? To which my answer is, well, Boston. I was born in Dorchester. And we're not seen at face value as naturally being an American. We always have to be from somewhere else.
Outside Albany, Clara is Assistant General Counsel for Trading at Hess Corporation. She's seen her fair share of challenges in the male-dominated petroleum industry. But as the daughter of first-generation Korean immigrants, she's had to learn how to adjust those values to a corporate setting where hard, quiet work doesn't necessarily lead to advancement.
Put your head down. Don't make too many ripples in the environment. Always just defer judgment and respect to the ranks up above, especially to elders, and just you'll get your just reward. It doesn't work that way at all in corporate America, in law firms.
Honestly, if you're not out there letting people know who you are, raising your profile, and perhaps showing a different face of Asian America, to buck that model minority stereotype of the quiet, hardworking, docile, technical Asian, then nothing will change for us.
So Asian American attorneys, he says, need to meet Albany halfway, get away from the desk, and at events, meet members who are partners at big firms, solo practitioners, in-house counsels at big companies, judges, professors, and law students, and see what happens. No doubt making partner is a challenge, but when a law firm makes the effort to embrace diversity, some good things can happen. We're at Baker Hostetler, where one of the partners is an Asian American woman. Ona Wang was made the first minority partner at the firm's New York office just 2 years after arriving from another firm where she had spent 4 years as an associate. That's very fast. Most associates take up to 10 years to make partner. Now Ona leads teams that have recovered billions of dollars for investors defrauded by Bernard Madoff, but she got to where she is now because of good mentors. Her firm has since developed a formal mentoring process, but sometimes you just have to assess where you're at by talking to someone who can help you improve.
Because hearing people say, great job, you did a really good job on that, is very nice. It makes you feel good, but it doesn't necessarily tell you how to take the next step, how to make it even better.
For Helen Wan, the partner track is no longer in her sights. She lives in Brooklyn and has a toddler at home, and she's writing her second book.
It's really fun to be working on a second new book with a new cast, totally new cast of characters. They feel like new, new friends that I'm getting to know. And so my second book is not a direct sequel. It's not a continuation of Ingrid's story. It's not set at Parsons Valentine. But it certainly does, again, explore the themes of how gender, race, and class kind of impact and affect people's decision-making as they pursue happiness.
Helen Wan's book and lawyers like Ona Wang are inspirational to other Asian American women looking to make partner at law firms. Add to that the mentorship and the guidance and support of organizations like the Asian American Bar Association of New York, and the potential is great for more attorneys to break the bamboo ceiling. I'm Paul Lin for Asian American Life.
Shri Srinivasan is journalism's social media guru. Now he's working at the Metropolitan Museum of Art as its chief digital officer. I sat down with him recently to talk about his impressive career. What led you to all this?
Over the years, I just developed an interest in understanding how technology can help make the lives of people better and more efficient and help them work better.
So how does a tech journalist and social media professor make the transition to the world of museums?
I had grown up right near the Met and went to school a block away from the Met, and so I've had what I call a 30-year one-way love affair with the Met.
Could you have imagined as that young kid that one day you're going to work in that grand building?
Oh, no, not at all. I tell people that everybody in the world has a piece of their history and their heritage here, and that's why they should come and see it.
What's your hashtag?
Shri tips?
He's hoping to do that with technology. Shri is no stranger to the world of technology. He is one of the country's leading digital and tech journalists and educators. You can say he was born for this position at the Met. He is, after all, in charge of telling stories about art and historic artifacts from around the world. His childhood was spent trotting all over the globe.
Where did you grow up?
So my father was an Indian diplomat, and so my parents lived all over the world, and I was born in Tokyo. And my father had no problem picking me out in the window. He said, the brown one is mine. And we lived in Japan. I left when I was very, very young and moved to the Himalayan kingdom of Bhutan.
His family also lived in Burma, now Myanmar, the then Soviet Union, and the island of Fiji. It was in Fiji, a small island in the Pacific, where he caught the journalism bug.
I told my parents when I was 12 I was going to be a journalist, and they started crying because Indian parents don't want their kids.
Like, why are you not a doctor?
Yeah, exactly.
But a journalist he became, and he got his first byline at 15, writing for the Fiji Sun.
I just kind of fell in love with journalism and the ability to tell stories and talk to people. It was so invigorating.
He went to college in India and studied history. Next was a master's degree from the Columbia School of Journalism. He stayed on at Columbia, where he taught and held several positions, including being named the school's first chief digital officer. While there, he came up with the idea of videotaping professors' lectures. Ironically, the first lecture that was recorded just happened to be the last lecture he gave as a professor at Columbia.
And what's the billion-dollar app that everybody's talking about that was based in Israel?
But it's his work as a digital journalist that made him a household name in the tech and journalism community. He is considered a pioneer in social and digital media.
Over the years, I just developed an interest in understanding how technology can help make the lives of people better and more efficient and help them work better.
His tech resume is packed. Technology reporter, freelance tech writer, consultant, and prolific public speaker, including TEDx. He founded the startup DNA Info, a local news website, and was founder of the South Asian Journalists Association.
It's been nice to be able to talk to Indian South Asian parents who are saying, is it okay if my kid becomes a journalist, and helping them think through their options. And I think it's absolutely not just okay, but it's important that there are people within the media who can understand and explain your culture and your community to the wider audience.
In 2004, Newsweek named him one of the 20 most influential South Asians in America. Ad Age listed Shri as one of the top 25 media people to follow on Twitter, and in 2012, GQ India named him one of the most powerful digital Indians in the world.
What kind of person has that made you, your South Asian, your Indian background? Do you still consider yourself very much Indian American?
Oh, sure. The Indian upbringing is, and the Indian culture is very strong, and you see that also a lot in the South Asian community in the United States, where there are other communities where after 2 or 3 generations, the ties to the home country start fraying. And among a lot of Asian cultures, they tend to stay strong.
Last year, he and his wife decided to make the United States their home country. They both became U.S. citizens.
When the opportunity came to become a citizen, that was very special. You have some bittersweet feelings because you have to give up your Indian citizenship. That's a rule in India where you have to kind of renounce your Indian citizenship. But no matter where I go in the world, I will always, people look at me and look at my name and say, you're Indian.
Of course, social media played a big role that day. He live tweeted the ceremony to his 50,000 plus followers and created a Storify page, a collection of posts and photos from the day. For Shri, more stories await as Chief Digital Officer at one of the world's most famous and popular museums.
If we have hundreds of thousands of pieces of art, then each one of them can tell a story, and we want that story told to as many people as possible. And a group of Syrian journalists came recently, and they wanted to see the Syrian artwork we have here, and they were looking at some of the art, and one of them said to me, you know, it's good that these pieces are here, because if they were back home, they would be destroyed. So that was a very moving moment to kind of think about this place can help preserve the story of the world and all these world cultures in one place. Having grown up around the world, you kind of have an appreciation for international cultures and people, but it also makes you someone who's open to new ideas.
I'm Kyung Yoon at the Aaron Diamond AIDS Research Center, where I had a chance to sit down with Dr. David Ho, whose pioneering work has been saving millions of lives.
Dr. David Ho has been in the forefront of AIDS research since the 1980s, ever since he encountered his first puzzling case as a young medical resident.
One day, a patient presented to the hospital with pneumonia, with visual impairment, with brain infection causing seizures. It was a major medical disaster, but this young man had been ill only weeks before and had no prior medical conditions. And then when we investigated the cause of the pneumonia, the brain infection, the retinal infection, turned out to be infections that are only seen in individuals whose immune system is compromised. And yet this man had no chemotherapy, radiation, or a hereditary condition that caused immune compromise. And so that was a great mystery, and you go to the textbook, you'll not find any such description.
The mystery disease would soon spiral into a major worldwide pandemic that, according to the World Health Organization, has claimed more than 36 million lives. This catastrophic death toll, however, would have been far greater had it not been for Dr. Ho and his pioneering research to develop a combination antiretroviral therapy cocktail that has saved millions of lives.
We came up with the clinical trial plan in the mid-1990s, and a year later, in 1996, the first set of results emerged, and that was the real success of controlling HIV and began the new era of good combination therapy for HIV-infected individuals.
This development transformed AIDS from being a virtual death sentence to a manageable disease that could be controlled, extending lives and giving hope to countless people living with HIV. That accomplishment landed Dr. David Ho on the cover of Time magazine as its 1996 Man of the Year.
I know that traditionally that's given to world leaders of various sorts, and so I didn't think much of it, and then one of the editors told me that they were considering Bill Clinton, Bill Gates, and Mother Teresa. So I go around and say, oh, that will never happen. We didn't give it much thought until the week before publication. And they actually called and said they made their choice, and I was really taken aback.
Time's recognition and other honors from world leaders and high-profile celebrities catapulted Dr. Ho to a new level of influence, and as he saw it, a responsibility to use the platform to advocate for those who wouldn't otherwise have access to life-saving medicine.
One thing we have to keep in mind, though, is that the therapies are not available to all who are infected, particularly in poorer parts of the world, say sub-Saharan Africa. And there, a concerted international effort has been underway for some time, led by the U.S. government, but together with the United Nations and other parties, trying to deliver these life-saving medications to poorer parts of the world.
Despite all the progress in helping the millions of people living with HIV, Dr. Ho points out that there are still more than 2 million new infections a year. So his focus has been on coming up with preventive measures to block transmissions.
We are working on long-acting agents. So they could be long-acting antibodies that we could actually construct in the laboratory that would block HIV. And if you were to inject that into the space under the skin or into the muscle, the antibodies would be released slowly and would block HIV infection and hopefully prevent a person from catching the virus. He gave the drug to monkeys and then challenged the monkey repeatedly with the virus. The monkey is protected.
So this is a monkey that does not have HIV. So this is in healthy
Monkeys given the drug and then challenged with the virus, and the monkey is protected 100% from the virus challenge. And now we are proceeding with the clinical trial process to test whether this long-acting drug could protect humans from HIV infection.
Dr. David Ho immigrated to America in 1965 when he was 12 years old. He says that while some may see his pursuit of science and medicine as stereotypic of Asian immigrants, he has been breaking new ground as a global health leader.
Willingly or not, I have taken on a role of a public advocate for the cause. You know, I think Asian scientists and engineers have had a tendency to defer from that role and be stuck with the technical aspect. While my lab is still focused on the technical aspect of AIDS research, I think I have expanded my role to be one of a opinion leader, an advocate when that is necessary with U.S. government or governments abroad. And I think that has broadened my own outlook for myself, and I see that for my next generation and the generation after that. And I think that is good for Asian Americans to assume a different role in this community.
Dr. Ho exemplifies what it means to be a leader, not only as a prominent AIDS researcher, but as a global advocate for health equity. For Asian American Life, I'm Kyung Yoon.
Be sure to stop by the Brooklyn Botanic Garden to check out the cherry blossoms and the Japanese Hill and Pond Garden. I'm Ernabel Demillo for Asian American Life. We'll see you next time.